Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Gilda Hilaire, and I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager leading Marketing Cloud Trailblazer programs. Today, we're doing a deep dive into distributed marketing presented by Will Kobles, Senior Product Manager. We also have Jason Court, Jenna Matson, and Elliot Harper, who will be online monitoring questions. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel. We will try to address these during the presentation and at the end. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Will.
Thank you so much. I'm going to keep my camera on here for the first minute or so and then turn it off just so we don't have any buffering issues. But hi, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Will Kobles. I'm the product manager here at Salesforce for distributed marketing. I've been with the company for just under 6 years, always in our cross-cloud capacity. I'm based in Indianapolis, so middle of the Midwest. Yeah, I'm really excited to be talking about this product. It was my baby from the beginning, so it's done a lot of growing up for the past 3 years, and I think I'll have a good time today. So this is my face. Everyone yells at me because I only have a third of my face on my picture. Here we are. Okay. So a quick overview of the agenda today. We're going to spend a bit of time talking about why distributed marketing. And we're going to not spend a huge amount of time here, but I want to make sure we've got the terminology and you understand kind of the product philosophy from our perspective. We're going to spend then a bit more time going over the solution a little bit more holistically. And then we're going to spend the bulk of the time doing a live demo. And I'm going to go into an end-to-end use case that you could turn around and use in your own organizations. We're not going to cover every nook and cranny within the product, but we're going to start with kind of the steel thread, which you can then use to build off of. And then we'll have time for Q&A. And I also want to leave you with some resources so that you can educate yourself in the future. So with that, everyone's favorite slide. We'll talk about future things, purchase the way you're supposed to purchase. Let's dig into why distributed marketing. So the way I like to think about distributed marketing functionality is as a set of tools and workflows that book of business owners use to engage with their clients or customers in a way that's efficient and compliant. So high level, it enables marketing teams to create content for CRM or community teams to send at their own discretion. And we talk more deeply about features and functionality. They all more or less roll up to one of these 3 ideas on screen, which you've probably seen before. So first, we help you get content into the hands of your users. And unlike a lot of solutions out there today, DM has a collection of workflows that plug into the Salesforce experience that these users already work in, so they don't actually go off into a separate app just to talk to their clients. And you'll see what that kind of looks like when we get into the demo. Second, we make it possible for end users, which throughout this I'll talk about as business users. If I just say users, it's these partners and dealers. Make it possible for them to interact with content within the boundaries that you as marketing define. So sometimes you'll hear this talked about as do it with me marketing, which is contrasted against do it for me and do it myself marketing. And 2 Dreamforces ago, I had a partner describe this as providing flexibility within a framework, which I really liked because that's what this is. It's providing flexibility for business users to make content their own, but within a framework that keeps everything compliant and best practice, etc. But the amount of collaboration is message specific. So you can create libraries that has everything from fully locked content to fully open content. And most of our customers land somewhere in between, where you have a combination of marketing, text, and some collaboration points. And third, we provide a set of tools that help you maintain both brand and legal compliance. And certain industries care more about this than others. So financial institutions, for example, are really heavy on compliance, franchises a little more flexible. But this is part of the framework that this flexibility is enabled within, so we can avoid things like sending out pink Comic Sans if your brand is blue and I don't know, any normal font. So quick high-level overview there. all in all, we think that this solution does primarily 3 things, which is important when thinking about how to talk about this solution within your own businesses. So there's this common idea that people tend to spend 80% of their time with the top 20% of their book, right? So I focus all of my effort on my most profitable people, the people I care the most about. But that's leaving a lot of people underserved. So we believe that this helps users increase retention overall and engage with more than that top 20% by helping them more efficiently serve more of their book more consistently, but with less effort. That's key, right? We've got to be productive. So DM is designed to put the content in the hands of users when and where they need it. Plus, by replacing repeated work with automation and rinse and reload templates, users spend more time on high value work and less time trying to be marketers. Because let's face it, most of these people aren't marketers, and if they try to be marketers, they're really bad. And that's okay. We don't have to be great at everything. But by empowering collaboration, this gives these folks the ability to use high quality best practice content that they can still make their own, but without putting the brand or the business at risk. Right? So these are kind of the 3 primary movers we like to think about. So that's all of the setup I'm going to do. We're going to dive a little bit into the solution holistically, and then we're going to look at that end-to-end use case so you can start thinking about how you'd use the product in your organization. So before we talk about specific features and functionality, I think it's important to spend a minute talking about workflow. DM by design is a cross-cloud, cross-product, and thus cross-department solution. And we know this isn't necessarily a muscle that a lot of us out here are used to using. So understanding what a normal workflow might look like, I think will help you strategize who's involved, how to roll out, etc. So we're going to be moving left to right through the screen. So everything begins in Marketing Cloud by creating content using Content Builder and activating that content in Journey Builder. And the journeys you create for DM are just like the journeys you create otherwise, except they have a specific configuration for the workflow you're enabling, and we'll talk about that. The content you create is also just like the content you create otherwise, again, with a little bit an asterisk that says you can augment it with areas that business users can interact with, and we call that collaborative content. A quick note, we natively support previewing and interacting with SMS and email activities in Journey Builder, but any other custom or standard activity can be used in most workflows. For example, if you use print, which a lot of folks do, Salesforce doesn't have a print provider, but we've got a lot of partners that plug in. So you can still use custom activities that interact with your print provider in DM-enabled content. The key thing to note about that, and you'll see this, is we don't natively visualize or preview those interactions. So you're going to want to think about that when using them in distributed marketing. All right, so we've created a bunch of content. Once we've created that asset library of active journeys, whether they're single message journeys or multi-step journeys, doesn't matter. You share them with business users in their CRM or community experience. Now, in general, we talk about supporting sales, service, financial services, and community cloud with partner or external app licenses. But it really comes down to the features and functionality that you've got in your org. So you're going to want to review the requirements of DM before making any decisions. Your AE can help with that. But basically, most CRM or community experiences you'll find us in. And every journey you share via DM is ultimately represented as a record in CRM, either a campaign record or a quick send record. And that means that you can use sharing rules to control who sees what down to the message level. And that's really cool. If you think about the power of sharing rules in Salesforce, you're basically able to superimpose that onto all of your content in Marketing Cloud through the context of DM. So those first 2 things, creating and sharing content, that's a tool for our marketers or the teams that are supporting our business users. After we've shared assets, we kind of flip the table and start talking about what happens for our business users, our sales reps, or our doctors, or our auto dealer manufacturing owners, those folks. DM offers something new called Content Marketplaces. It's coming out in the 2.2.6 release. And that's in addition to what's already available on the platform, but it's designed to help users find the content they want to send. Now, every send consists of two things: an asset or a collection of assets and an audience. And so once a user's picked both of those things, they're able to personalize the messages in the journey if you've enabled that, and then send. Now they can target any contact or lead that they have access to, or person account, and they can do individual, group, or bulk modifications, and they can send to those groupings of folks, and they can initiate those sends from all over the platform. And this is where we kind of get to the DM names, if you will. So users can use what we call quick send to send or schedule single one-off messages to individuals or lists from all over. So contacts, leads, account records, opportunities, cases, and the message record itself. So lots of different places you can send message from. Similarly, users can put individuals on multi-step journeys using campaign sends. And if you think about the use cases that align most generally with these, quick sends are going to be what your users think of as just template libraries. So all of the one-off assets that have to do with whatever your business does that somebody can send ad hoc. Campaign sends can have the same content, but they're generally more aligned to actual things like traditional campaigns that a user is doing that involves maybe ROI, involves measurement. So that would be things like if I want to send maybe quarterly newsletters, or if I'm hosting a physical event, or in these days a virtual event, things that we traditionally think of as more campaigny than just one-off assets. So now a user hits send. And the great thing is that through DM, every single send goes through Marketing Cloud, which means that it has all of the power of Marketing Cloud behind it, and you as a corporate marketing team have full visibility into what's going out the door and how it's performing. So no more black boxes of, oh, I wonder what my reps are sending out through Outlook. I have no idea. Now you do know. That information, we think, is essential for learning what content and behaviors are really working in your organization. And if you capture that, you can use that to help all of your users do what we like to say is perform like the top 1%. How do we take the best things that are happening in our fields and democratize those so that we make everybody perform more efficiently and better? Ultimately, that does two things. All of us have bottom lines, so it helps us build and grow our business more efficiently. But also, all of us care about customer experience. And when you've got a good experience for your end client, that's fantastic. So we think we can, both of those things are helped. So how is this, how does it all work? What's the underpinnings? This is like boring slide 101, but it's a laundry list of all of the pieces that go into distributed marketing. And we're gonna move left to right, top to bottom. So on the Marketing Cloud side, we use, like I mentioned, Journey Builder and Content Builder. Now, content collaboration is enabled via custom content blocks that you drag and drop on your canvas. Under the covers, each of those blocks is AMP script that my team has designed to support per recipient, per user modifications, and also hook into the DM editing experience. And we'll see what that means when we get in the demo. And keep in mind, all of these blocks can be used in combination with any other content you've also created. And this question that everyone always asks is, can we use the interactive content block that we just rolled out? And my answer right now is you should be able to, but I've not tested it yet. So we'll just answer that question right now. Hopefully, that's the goal. To use out of the box send from capabilities, so send on behalf of myself or somebody else, today we allow users to send on behalf of themselves or the record owner out of the box. And to support that, you'll set up the sender profile for DM. You can also manage send from outside of DM if you need to, which is not uncommon. So for example, if you've got a more complicated team structure, maybe you're a financial institution and your groups or your account reps work in teams, you can manage send from outside of what we offer out of the box to provide more flexibility as needed. CRM side, distributed marketing is a managed package that installs into your org and then provides custom objects and fields and lightning components that kind of augment the experience you've already built. So the components themselves can be dragged into various pages based on the workflow and can be controlled with page layouts and component visibility. You can't modify the components themselves, so you can't like change button colors and stuff like that yet, but you can pretty deeply embed them into the experiences you've already built, which is great for users not having to go off and learn a whole new tool just to send an email. The last thing I'd say about this to keep in mind is DM is a licensed product, which means that only the users you give licenses to can use the product. And you can, control visibility with page layouts and whatnot to make sure that people only see what they've got, but it is controllable by you. And all of our updates are pushed regularly with Marketing Cloud releases. The thing to note here is we follow Marketing Cloud release cycles. So we have 5 releases a year, but we follow your core release process. So we release to sandbox non-production environments first, give you a period of time to test, and then push to your production environments after. So this kind of gives you an overview of what's going on there. So second to last slide before the demo. So in today's demo, we quick change to the original announcement, but we're going to actually demo even a simpler use case, happy birthday, which I know is going to just rock your world. But a quick thing about that. But I did want to touch on the use cases that almost all of our customers enable when getting started. And I did not create these use cases. This is from conversations with partners or with customers thinking about how to roll out, because this is perhaps one of the most important things to think about with DM. So birthdays, anniversaries, regional holidays, like federal holidays, there's 9 of them here in the US. There's more or less depending on where you are in the world. And situational / life world events, assets, those are not going to solve the world's problems, we know. And they're also probably not like mission critical to what business you do. That's fine. They do give you a modest collection of assets that are really, really low risk and really easy for users to understand, and that's critical. When you're rolling out this solution, you're gonna be flexing a lot of things that we're not used to, and helping your users quickly understand how to use the system is gonna be really, really important for starting to build that muscle, and then we can start giving them higher value content. But don't underestimate the power of a simple email. Anecdotally, one of my first customers said that one of their highest open rate pieces of content was a Father's Day email. And like, well, okay, who cares about Father's Day? That is a moment to deepen the real relationship you've got with your book of business, which is really, really critical. So never underestimate the value of a simple email. So one other thing I want to say about that is Salesforce is probably not known for naming things really beautifully. I don't know. This is recorded, so hopefully I don't get in trouble. We know that distributed marketing has the word marketing in the name, but the assets you share don't have to just be traditional marketing assets. They can be knowledge articles, they can be thought leadership articles, they can be informational, they can just be checking in. Anytime there's a touch point with an individual is an opportunity to do more than just say hi. So keep that in mind. So 2 examples I want to call out, and then we'll hop in the demo. These are real life examples we're actively thinking about. So the first is, both are centered around the current world event that I think we're all probably fairly aware of. Most of us are thinking about getting back to workplaces, or at least in the States, it's really a hot topic right now. We also know that it's not going to be the same, and we're going to have to communicate really carefully with everyone. So one thing you could do is use DM and give it to your internal HR or facilities teams, and use it to communicate actually with your employees through your back to work process. So explain new policy changes, explain what does social distancing mean for you. Here's your open dates. That's something that Salesforce is doing as Salesforce with us. And a good thing about it is because all of these sends are going through Marketing Cloud, it's really easy to track participation and engagement and make sure that like the right message is getting out and people are hearing it. So that's one idea. The second thing is maybe the more traditional use of DM, which would be giving it to your sales teams or equivalent to help position your brand's perspective on COVID and your policy changes. And so, for example, my personal financial advisor, who does not use DM, and I can always tell, but he's been reaching out to me about every 2 weeks just to kind of say hi and keep me aware of what's going on. But he uses it as an opportunity to provide links to thought leadership articles that the bigger brand is creating, which we're all kind of creating those thought leadership moments. And so he could go to Outlook or Gmail and do this or something else, but DM makes it really easy to give him and enable him the best practice content and help him scale those communications. So he doesn't have to rinse and repeat the same thing 400 times. He can set it up once and then go for there. So a couple ideas of real life things that you could think about. And now the other real life thing that we all have is birthdays. So we'll talk about that. So we are going to, let me give you an overview of what the demo will look like, just to kind of help you consume it. So we're going to start in Marketing Cloud, and we're going to start by building the journey that will power our birthday emails for our account managers. We're then going to move into Sales Cloud, and I'm going to show you how you would go about sharing this message with your account managers. And then we're going to do a hat change, and we're going to become our account manager, and I'm just going to show you what the experience looks like from their end so that you kind of have a complete picture of what's going on in the system. So with that, I'm going to change tabs, or forget how to do that and struggle magnificently. There we go. So we are on or in Marketing Cloud, and most of you are probably very familiar with this. And we're going to first build out the birthday email. So to do that, and to do any asset in DM, you need 4 things. First, you need the email itself or SMS message. Second, you need the journey that's going to activate the content. DM journeys use the API entry source exclusively, so you also need a data extension for the journey. And fourth, you need to set up the sender profile for DM users. And for this demo, I'm going to use the out-of-the-box send from options. But if you didn't want to do that, you'd still probably want to set up a sender profile. Just don't follow the out-of-the-box documentation verbatim. One other thing in this demo is I'm going to use the greeting field, which is a DM field, to let my account manager select how the recipient's name shows up in the email. Now, this is a field that's automatically included in the DM payload. So in order to preview it in DM, you'll also need to include that field as a profile attribute. And this is true anytime you want to use DM's data to impact the content itself. If you don't include include it as a profile attribute, you'll get an error in a CRM side. It's an important thing to call out is when we're previewing from a context outside of Marketing Cloud. So we need to have that set up. So just a quick call out there. Now we're going to cross our fingers and click things live. We're going to start by creating a new data extension in Contact Builder. And so I'm going to navigate my way there. And while this is doing its fun stuff, I'm going to talk about it a bit. So this data extension will include all of the fields that DM automatically includes as part of our standard payload. This DE is not available as a template yet, so you'll need to create it manually the first time, but once you've created it once, you can use that as your starting point for all future journeys. So let's do that really quick. And I'm gonna first open the wrong folder because I am clearly not great at organization. We're gonna create it in this folder here. We're gonna call it trail. Oh, nope. First, we're going to do what I just told you to do and create it from an existing template so I don't have to do anything complicated. And we're going to pick this guy, and we're going to go and call it that. It does need to be a sendable data extension. You do not have to apply a data retention policy. In fact, you probably shouldn't, because this data extension will exist for a long time as long as the content's relevant. And we're just going to go ahead and make sure all the fields I expect are there. Make sure that we've got ID relating to the subscriber key. ID equals the contact or lead ID in CRM. So this will get represented in your contact model. Keep that in mind. And this looks great. We're going to hit complete. One thing to keep in mind, if you've been using DM for a while, or if you've looked at this before in the past, that data extension has changed very recently in order to support SMS messages. So just keep that in mind. So that's it. That data extension is built. Yay. So now we're going to create the journey in Journey Builder. And I've already created the shell because you don't need to watch me click that. But note that DM journeys do need to be multi-step journeys, even if you only have a single email. So quick send, a journey for quick send messages. The new simple send, I believe is what it's called, doesn't work because you cannot select the right entry event type. Okay, so to use the journey for quick send, and I mentioned there's two flavors, quick sends and campaign sends. For quick sends, which we're going to demo today, you'll configure the multi-step journey with a unique API entry source and at most a single email or SMS message activity. And you'll also need to make sure that journeys for quick sends allow re-entry. Again, think of the use case. These are just one-off assets. I can send it as many times as I want. Campaign sends are similar, except that you can use multiple message activities. So you could have 2 emails and 3 SMS messages and whatever you want in there. And you don't need to allow re-entry if you don't want to. Both types can include multiple non-message activities, which in my account are these two right here. So they can have multiple non-message activities or flow controls, so you can tie these sends into other workflows or processes if you want. So for example, you might use an engagement split to create a task for your user in CRM based on whether or not the person opened the content or update a CRM record, something like that. The only thing, again, I'd call out is to keep in mind is that only the SMS and email activities are going to be visualized for users in DM. So let's go ahead and get this created. We have an API entry or API events here. We're going to go ahead and tie it to that data extension that we just built. And we're going to hope that I remember what I called it and that this decides to load. And then we're going to, after we choose the API event, we're going to make sure we've got the right entry definition and then create the email. I'm just going to go ahead and go do a good old read. Pick the data extension. We're going to find the one I just created, which should be right in here. Go ahead and click summary and done. There, entry source created. Now we're going to create this email that I was talking about. So I always create my emails in Journey Builder. You could create these in Content Builder and then just add them to the journey. Doesn't matter. Either way is great. So I am going to create a new message, and I'm going to build it off of a template. Now, keep in mind a few things. Let me pick this template really quick. These are still emails that go out of the door front, and they're considered commercial. So they still have to have CAN spam compliance or whatever your local equivalent is. They got to have physical mailing addresses, all that good stuff. So starting out with a template is probably helpful. We're going to call this Trailblazer Demo 2. Beginning, so happy birthday. And begin building it. So this is a really simple template. There's really nothing in it. So in this email, we're going to do a few things. So we're going to use the DM image block to allow our account manager to select the image used as the header. We're going to use a standard text block with some AMP script to put a short message in this card so that the account manager doesn't have to do anything and still get a personalized message out the door. We're going to use the DM rich text block to let our manager write a personal note if she wants. And finally, we're going to use the DM multivariant block to create a collection of subject lines that she can select from. And like I said, CAN spam, compliance, all of that, unsubscribe, that still has to be here. So let's go ahead and build the image, build the email. So in Content Builder, you'll see custom blocks. These four are mine and then yours. So the DM image block, it's really easy. We're just going to go ahead and drag it and configure. Every DM block has a collection of things that are similar. So for example, guidance messages, I can let somebody know how I should engage with this. And then there's going to be stuff that is specific to the block you've dragged on. So for an image block, we can define an image library that our users can select from. These images need to be in Content Builder, so we can't pull them from external sources. Image, and then every image has a handful of things you can define. So you can give it a name. That's going to be what our account manager selects from when she's personalizing. You can provide alt text, which will display if images don't render. This is really great for accessibility. And you can also provide a URL. That means if this, happy birthday, probably we don't need to redirect anywhere. But if this was a product offering, you could maybe link to the products page on your e-commerce site. And now this image is an automatic redirect to my relevant next action. You can also allow a user to provide their own image from a URL. So I'll go ahead and enable that so you can see what it looks like. This would be if you've got folks who've got image libraries that exist somewhere on the interwebs that are publicly available. We do not support uploading from desktop, and we do not support the Salesforce CMS yet. So let's go ahead and save that. Great, image block is done. I said we want to do some text. So let's go ahead and drag a text block on here. And this is going to be what we send if the user doesn't do anything. So we're just going to say something simple. We're going to center it. This is where we're going to use greeting. So this is that field from DM that we need to define as a profile attribute, which is already defined in this account. But basically now this means that even if our account manager doesn't do anything, we're still going to see happy birthday and then the name of the person. I want to also give somebody the ability to do a personal note. So I'm going to drag in the rich text block. There's two text block options within DM, rich text and plain text. They're essentially the same, except for plain text does not allow any formatting. Rich text allows limited formatting. So I can do things like bold, italic, underline, I can attach a link, but I can't go changing font sizes and colors and make it look all wacky. So I'm going to name this. Let's just go ahead and call it personal note. This is what my account manager will see. Guidance message, again, let's go ahead and say, write a personal note for your clients. You have 500 characters. We're going to make it so they only have 500 characters. An important thing to note behind the scenes here, all of DM's personalization is ultimately lands in Marketing Cloud in a data extension. We manage all of that behind the scenes, but the maximum character number for a DE out of the box is 4,000. So that's why you can only have between 1 and I think we say 50 and 4,000 characters, which is a lot of text. A lot of people are like 4,000 characters, it's a novel. You could send a novel. So we'll go ahead and be done there. I think the guidance message I gave for the image didn't make any sense. Let's go ahead and say select an image. Okay, now we're good to go. The last thing I want to do is I want to do this configurable subject line. And this is a bit more of an advanced use case than a lot of folks need right out of the box. But we can use the DM multivariant block to do that. And what the multivariant block is think of it as kind of like dynamic content. So we're going to use data to change what the email looks like or some property on around the email, in this case, the subject. The difference between dynamic content and this is that it's not just a field sitting somewhere that defines what the value is. The business user, so our account manager, is actually the person deciding the value. So let's go ahead and drag this on. I'm going to drag it to the top of the email. Something to keep in mind is that this does need to be defined above the content that it's used in. And just behind the scenes, this is still AMP script, and we're defining variables here. So you can't provide the definition of the variable before you or after you use the variable. So just a quick heads up there. We're going to go ahead and call this custom subject line. We're going to, again, provide a bit of context, and we're going to name the variable. In this case, we're going to name it custom subject line. And now what we're going to do is give or define the options that our account manager will be able to select from. So happy birthday. We'll go say thinking of you. And I'm really creative, so we're going to say option 3 or 3, option 4. You can define 12 of these per block. We're going to say done. Now, last thing is we actually have to make that do something. And the way we do that is we're going to update our subject line to be a little bit fancier than whatever. We're just going to throw in some AMP scripts. This is really, really basic AMP script. This is will AMP script. In real life, you're going to want to make sure that this is a little bit more robust, maybe provide a default value, but this is going to print whatever the value is the person selects in the subject line. And we're done. So this is it. This email, you'll see, will work beautifully in DM. We're going to save it. And last step to make this a thing is finish setting up this email and activating the journey. So we're going to give it a name. This is what our user is going to see. I can provide a description if I want. Remember, we want this to go from our DM person. So we're going to use our distributed marketing sender profile, which is using the default variables from DM, which are send from name and send from email in the definition. This can be anything you want. We're going to go ahead and call this good. So let's go ahead and save this. Let's go ahead and make sure that we're allowing, well, click 40 times. Here we go. We'll go ahead and make sure that we're allowing re-entry so that this is available for quick send, and we're going to activate. And when this is activated, this is now available for you to, at your discretion, make it available within distributed marketing. We're going to wait for that fun little welcome mat that says something with a rocket, just so I know it's all done. And then what we're going to do is move over. There we go. There's the rocket. Return to journey. Beautiful. What we're going to do is go over to Sales Cloud now, and we're going to do one more thing as you, as a marketer or the person supporting your teams, and then we're going to flip over to our account manager. So the first thing, before I show you what we're going to do, how to make this available, I want to take a quick second and show you Content Marketplace. This is what's new in 2.2.6. Think of this as a visualization of list views. So this is showing me all the content that I have access to, grouped and segmented by whatever my marketers have made for me. And what we want to do is make this happy birthday email we just made available under our life events category. And you can see the demo I did earlier is here already. So we're going to do that together. To do that, we first go into Distributed Marketing Administration, which you can get to through App Launcher. Just type admin and DM admin appears. This is your home base outside of Marketing Cloud. And we're going to make this available for quick sends. So we're going to go to the quick send tab, and we're going to pick the business unit we want. DM supports up to 200 business units. EID does not matter. So as long as you've got the mid, you can use it. And here we are, Happy Birthday Trailblazer Demo 2. We're going to go ahead and add it. And with that, click Apply Changes. Now this message is available for me to share out to my masses. I can do a whole bunch of other things in here too. I can do compliance and approvals. I can change send from information, all sorts of fun things. We're not going to touch any of that today, but this is where you'd manage all of that. So we have one more thing to do to make sure this message shows up, and that's going to be to make sure it fits our filter criteria. So here's the record that represents that message that we just added. This is a custom record, a custom object that DM installs, but you can customize it to your heart's content. What I've done is I've added a couple custom fields here, and I use those fields to populate the list views that I then use to give my users access. So I'm going to go ahead and make this primary category life event and go ahead and save it. I'm also going to go ahead and pick an image so that we don't have just the stock image available. Wonderful. And I'm done. So if I go back to my home page and I refresh, and if I go into that tab that we were just in, the Life Events tab, voila, we've got 3 emails there now. This is the one we just created and added. So now we're going to take off our marketing hat and we're going to put on our account manager hat, and I'm going to show you what it would look like for me to use this piece of content. So let's say I want to go ahead and send this, and I'm going to, the workflow we're going to talk about today is quick send to an individual from the message record, but this asset is now available in any of the quick send workflows that you've enabled for your users. So from Marketplace, to get into a record, all I do is click it. and then we're going to open the new record page. If this was a campaign, we'd open the campaign record page. In this case, we're going to open the quick send message record page. Again, use layouts to make this super specific and relevant to the person that's using it. What we're going to do is go ahead and we picked our asset. We need to pick that second part, which is audience. So I'm going to go ahead here and search for Astro because his birthday is today, according to me. We're going to click edit. Now, what you're going to see on screen is the editing experience for DM, and this is the same experience no matter where you are in the platform. So whether I'm defining defaults for myself or sending to 2,000 people from a quick send or 25,000 people from a campaign, doesn't matter. Same experience. So we're in the edit mode, and this is where we're pulling back a preview of that content that we just created. And I mentioned that DM blocks have AMP script that hook into the experience, and this is what I mean. Notice how as I scroll over, the email kind of lights up and tells me I can do things. Anything that isn't a DM block is just going to sit there looking real cool, but I can't do anything with it. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to pick subject line. There are options. Let's pick thinking of you. This image, you know what, let's go with the pink sprinkles for this email, and I'm going to write something really great. It's just you can't read it because it's my own language. If I want, I can also embed a link. Let's go to salesforce.com. Beautiful, right? If I think I have restricted, but yep, there's a little sneak peek. If I've defined words that can't be used in a content, I can just automatically say, nope, you can't send that. So, you know, swear words are a no-go in general. This is, I'm editing, right? So I'm fully annotated. But what if I want to see what this actually looks like when Astro gets it? Well, I can click preview. And now we're going to refresh that preview. We're going to remove all the annotations, but remember everything I just did and show it to me in line. So we've got the subject line I picked. I got the send from and send to information based on the configuration. I see the image I picked. I see the text. Amazing. I see that Astro's name is defined here. Well, I don't actually want to say Astro. I want to say astronomical. Great. I can go in here and change the greeting to full name. I could also go ahead and say, you know what? I forgot his birthday is actually tomorrow, so I'm going to schedule it for there. If I want to go ahead and see that change I just made for greeting, let's go ahead and just refresh that preview. All of a sudden, you're going to see happy birthday astronomical, not happy birthday Astro. And the values that I can pick here are fully configurable by you in DM administration. That's it. I can tweak and do whatever I want here to make this perfect. My call to action here is going to be contextualized. I scheduled this send, so it's going to say scheduled send. If I didn't schedule it, it's just going to say send. If I've got approvals enabled, it's going to say submit. So it tells me what's going to happen next. And I'm going to go ahead and schedule this. And I do this all the time and forget that I've done this. So I'm getting random emails to personal account like at 9 at night, wondering what I've done. It's because I sit here scheduling things. So if I go back and I just refresh this page really quick, I want to show you one more thing. Because I've scheduled it, I can actually go ahead and see that this is in the future. So I'm going to go to my send log for this message, and I can see that I've got this message scheduled for tomorrow at 6:43 Eastern. This is all contextual to my org's time zone, so where I am in the world. I can go ahead and cancel this if I want, all sorts of good things. But that's basically it. Whether I'm sending one-to-one or one-to-many or many-to-many, it doesn't matter. It's the same general experience of picking either an asset and then an audience, modifying and sending, or picking an audience, then an asset, and then modifying and sending. So we're going to stop the demo there. We have 15 minutes left, and I'm never on time with demos, so this is shocking. I'm going to hop back into the tech really quick, and then just wrap things up before we go into Q&A. So I'm going to flip the order on us really quick. I just want to make sure to touch on the resources really quickly. So in general, there's a lot of places to go. These are my favorite 5. So we do have a success community. In the Trailblazer community, there's a group for distributed marketing. I am increasingly active on it, and we have customers that are increasingly active. It's a great way to get in touch with us for non-emergencies. You still use your support mechanism if something's going wrong, but this is a great place to learn when new things are coming, get demos, etc. You get the benefits of hearing whatever my traffic is playing. Sorry for that. We do have a trail, get started with distributed marketing. It's 3 modules. We update that about every 6 months or so. So there's a few things that aren't hit on it, but it's a great tool to just kind of get familiar with the product or evangelize the product. And then within the documentation, we work very hard to make sure that our docs are good. And it's an uphill battle, but we try. So we do have getting started guides, and these are designed to help you stand up specific workflows. So if you want to light up quick send from a contact, or if you want to light up campaign sends, it's going to walk you through exactly which parts of help to look at and help you configure it kind of step by step, so you don't have to chew through all of our docs. We are part of the release notes that are part of Marketing Cloud, and we do have all of our documentations on help and training. One thing I'll mention is I'm actually starting to work up creating more demo videos, and those will be available publicly in Vidyard, which is kind of what Salesforce uses to post videos. So those will be coming to you soon. You do have the content marketplace demos available today. So with that, let's go ahead and open to Q&A. And we're going to go ahead and just tell it to show everything. This is the slide I like to put up during Q&A, because this is the Harbor Cruise slide of all the bits and pieces that create distributed marketing. So question time.
Okay, and hi, this is Jenna. I'm going to be asking questions on behalf of Gilda, who is having some sound audio issues on her end. First question from the crowd today. Thank you for asking, Daniel. Is can we use this platform licenses in addition to full licenses? Or can we use this with platform licenses? Yes.
So DM is a separate license. You cannot use it with just Force.com or platform licenses yet. There's a bunch of boring reasons why, mostly around required objects that DM needs in order to install. So today you need to have sales, service, financial service, or community with partner, member, partner license, or external apps plus.
Okay, yeah, that makes total sense. All right. Next question is, can you comment on sending from the user as it relates to a sender authentication, or as it relates to the sender authentication?
So I think that probably is talking about like domain validation, right? Like how you need to make sure. I believe
so, yeah. The SAP from the Marketing Cloud side of it, which how you would send it from a user from the core, yeah.
So usually what we've seen, the sending portion is all managed Marketing Cloud side. Generally, there's question around SAP and reply mail management. So the short answer is, what we've seen a lot of customers doing is setting up subdomains. So like maybe, instead of just I'm sending from salesforce.com, I'm going to say, me at sales or me.salesforce.com. So a separate domain that all of their users send through. That's primarily for deliverability, is my understanding, so that we don't kind of mix what corporate marketing's deliverability looks like and what general users' deliverability looks like. You still need to, if you do that, some of that IP warming and all of that stuff still applies. From the mail management side, you generally what we see is people configure it to send back to the domain that it was sent from. So your corporate email or Gmail or Outlook or whatever. Beyond that, we'd want to get into like specifics. It starts to leave where I can speak intelligently about it, and then I start making things up. I don't want to do that. So
that makes sense. I think you covered everything. All right. Next question is, can you automate birthday messages or the messages I'm assuming going out, which I'm assuming you can since you're using Journey Builder?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and that starts to dig into like a bit of the strategy. So if you think about like pull up out of DM, what tools do you have? Marketing Cloud at its core is marketing automation, right? So you could just automate those out, and that's totally fine. You could also, for example, automate birthday emails for book of business owners and just let them know that that's going to happen. Within DM itself, kind of the reason that we would make it a DM send versus just an automated send is because we want that collaboration, and we also want to put the power into the hands of the business user. So birthdays, yeah, they could really go either way if we should just automate them or not. What we've seen though is that while automation is really easy for those types of things, there can be a lot of value by letting a user a DM user, a business user, interact with that message itself.
Absolutely, that makes sense.
One
Personally
thing,
engage with them.
I'll add one thing really quick that's interesting. It's a little higher level, but so our first customer to ever use DM, it was back when DM only had campaign sends, and what they did is they actually pre-populated campaigns for their financial advisors, and they used AI, but you could use reports or anything manual, right, or triggers. And which is why, by the way, why like the campaign send today has that approval step, was because it wasn't actually the financial advisor saying, I want my person on this campaign. It was marketing saying, you should message this person with this campaign. So that is something you could do, is you could programmatically populate people with campaigns you think users should interact with based on smarts. And then in that way, it's kind of automated, but it's still in the power of the user to ultimately say yes or no.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, next question is, do sends from DMs or from DM, excuse me, and SF add context to Salesforce Marketing Cloud?
Yes. So every time you hit send, that ID, that contact ID or lead ID, is going to get represented as a contact in your contact model. Good question to think about. If you're marketing to people that are totally outside of the book of business, that will increase your net contacts consumed. There are not hard rules in Marketing Cloud with what you do and don't do as far as that. From what we've seen, like a best practice, if you are a multi-cloud customer, is to hinge on that ID, the CRM ID, as your subscriber key. And we've seen customers who haven't done that, especially when they started with email address as subscriber key, and that can get a little bit difficult. But from like a best practice, it's to lean on that ID as your subscriber key in Marketing Cloud. And in that case, if it already exists in Marketing Cloud, we're not going to create a new contact. We'll just use the one that already exists. Makes
sense. That was a good question. Next question. This one's interesting too. Can you give the users in Salesforce a few cards to choose from and then personalize? So can you give them different ones, which I believe you showed you can? Different creatives, different content.
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways you can do that. So like if I go in and let me just pick a different email. Let me go and I'm going to go into a campaign. You can use as many DM blocks as you want in a particular asset. So if I go into this message, now you get to see campaign sends, yay. I'm going to go ahead and personalize. So this email, I believe, has multiple areas that I can interact with. So yeah, and this I've got, this email, this image is interactable, this one is, this text is. What you could do using the multivariant block is show entirely different bodies, and then the user would pick between like body 1, body 2, body 3, and that all that logic would have to live in your email, right? So you have a really, really big email that's kind of situational. What you cannot do is let people pick between channel. So you can't say, do you want to send this as an email or an SMS message? That's defined kind of in the journey structure itself. I hope that answers. And if not, we can follow up.
That makes sense. All right. This next question was a little vague, but so Tara, or Tara, if I'm asking wrong, please expand. When will the standard DE be ready as a template?
So
that's
I know
my
who this
question
is.
too. Yeah.
Why do you not like writing manually in the data extension values? No. So I'm actually talking with that team right now to see if we can get DMDEs as just part of the normal templates. So we're talking about that now. I don't know where that will fall on the list. Ideally, it will be sooner rather than later. So it's a good question. I think in general, let me add really quick to that. So we are pretty closely looking at the maintenance and setup needed for you as marketers as far as creating content and maintaining it. there's not a lot that we've found so far that we can really automate away, but if you've got ideas of like things that would just make your life easier, please let me know, because we do know that it's, it's 4 things is still 4 things, between the email.
Yeah, and Will, hi, it's Elliot here. So just to expand on that, just as an alternative to manually creating that data extension, what if there was an event source for distributed marketing, and when you added that to your journey canvas, it actually goes and creates that data extension, rather than you have to manually create it either from a template or otherwise each time. I mean, would that make sense?
Sounds like a good custom journey activity, Elliot.
So I'm talking about an event source rather than a
okay, rather than an activity. Got you.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
but just like you can do with Salesforce data, and have a campaign and or community, just to use that, it would just be a more integrated experience.
That's a really good idea.
And yeah, rather than going and selecting the API event manually, which is a little bit awkward, yeah, just have a DM entry source, and it obviously API behind the scenes, but goes and creates that event source DE with required fields.
It's a good idea.
All right, I think we're down to about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to ask another quick couple of questions. Does DM work with marketing cloud tokenization?
So if you are using field level encryption and that group of solutions, my unofficial answer is yes. And I say unofficial because we are wrapping up testing on that now. So we haven't seen any issues with it. There's some configuration changes you have to make. So for example, you can't use the email address from CRM anymore, obviously, because it's obfuscated away. But yes, that should be being updated pretty soon. To round out that context, all of the testing we're doing is both with field level encryption and Shield. So FLE on the marketing cloud side and Shield on the CRM side.
But to answer the question, I don't think it would work with tokenized sending, which is follows a different flow where the subscriber key is effectively it's the email address is obfuscated, isn't it? Yeah.
All right. This one last one. This one sounds pretty interesting. Can you pre-populate signatures and branding by an agent?
Yes, but you will need to dig into AMP script. So let me open this really quick. You can see the thousands of tabs I've got going on at any point. So you can absolutely, and most everyone does, use the agents, the person sending to populate a signature for them. When you use DM, so this is our documentation. Here are somewhere in here. Basically, there's a collection of fields that we send across. So what we usually see people do is using the user ID, which is sent across with DM, to then create a dynamic signature for them. And we've seen people do it.
It's 7 o'clock.
Simply with just like name, but we've also seen people use that to roll in things like entitlements, if it's financial. I think my audio also cut out there, but I will say that there is a conversation about that in the Trailblazer community right now that I believe Tara was providing some context. And same Tara who asked a good question about DUs, I'm pretty sure.
And there are some additional questions in here, and Will, I know you'll be answering these questions and we'll be sending out a recap video tomorrow. So if you missed anything during this presentation, and thank you, Will, this was fantastic. If anybody missed anything on this presentation about distributed marketing, it will be emailed out tomorrow. And like I said, I believe Will, I heard you were answering questions from the session earlier, so hopefully you're going to volunteer you to do the same thing here, not even hopefully. So thank you everybody for joining.
Yes, thank you so much.
And thank you, Elliot, for being a panelist, and thank you, Gilda. See you guys.
Bye-bye.